We out of red in England. All aboard, yeah, you know it's Hype Train FC. Modern ambition, we got blue and gold in our kit. Plus, you know we the champs of the league. And we don't quit. Started from grassroots, yeah, the sport, we ain't taking it light. You know it's real, from fantasy to the field. You better believe the hype. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Robert Austin and a very warm welcome indeed to the Hype Train FC YouTube channel to what is the 11th edition of our podcast. Today I've got another special guest on board, this time Haseeb Ishaq from FC Baylis. He operates as the club chairman, is on with me today and we're talking all things cup competitions. If you know anything about myself, I love promoting the fact that we won the 2022 edition of the East Berkshire Football League's President's Cup. FC Baylis, also a member of the league, and they won the 2023 edition of the tournament. So it was a perfect time to have Haseeb on to talk about his team's incarnation from 2020 all the way to winning a cup competition 3 years later in 2023. So aside from that, we also talk a lot about grassroots football, our clubs, and predominantly I ask Haseeb a lot about sponsorship and what it takes to get a sponsor on board, as he's got a lot of information that he can pass on to a new club who's in a position where they're thinking, my God, how do I get a sponsor or some extra money in place for my club? Aside from that, if you don't know the area, Slough can be a predominantly Muslim area, and that's reflected in its football clubs as well. So a lot of players from FC Baylis come from that type of world where they do fasting, they take part in Ramadan, and this affects football clubs in the grassroots area. So I basically just learn a lot about the Ramadan experience and the culture that these Muslim-based clubs go through in this period. Aside from that, I really hope you enjoy today's long sit down with Haseeb. And aside from that, let's get straight into the action. Hi everyone, Rob from Hype Train Podcast here for what is our 11th edition. Today I've got a special guest with me, Haseeb from FC Baylis. I'm just going to hand over for a quick introduction. Haseeb, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi guys, I'm Haseeb from FC Baylis. I am the one of the co-founders and club manager of FC Baylis.
Perfect. So this is about 25 minutes, 30 minutes into recording the podcast. We had some issues for about half an hour, so
technical difficulties.
So yeah. So this is take 2. So what I'm going to get you to regurgitate again for everybody at home is just a little bit about Baylis, about your club. Because everybody in my podcast, and myself included, is new. It's great to hear from new clubs. So tell me a little bit about yourself first and foremost, and your role at Baylis, and then a little bit about the club as well.
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders of the club. There's 3 of us. So it was my idea, if you like. And I found with me, I got Akib and Mohsin. Akib is still with us. Mohsin is no longer around, but he was one of the guys that started it all. There's a lot of us, I had like 9, 10, 11 family members. And as I was telling you in take 1, Rob, we had a wedding coming up, my oldest brother's wedding coming up. And when we just looked at the list of everyone that was going there, we thought, one of my cousins was trying to get us over to Frontline, or was saying to us, let's go to Frontline. And the intention was to go and train with them. But when we looked at, having 9 or 10 players, cousins, family members that are good at playing football, let's find another 4 or 5 and we've got a squad there. The intention was never for me to manage or coach. I was supposed to play. I wanted to play. I'm good enough to play. I should be playing, but other things kind of happened as we got on. And yeah, we've been around this is our 4th season now. We're from the Baylis area in Slough, majority Pakistani, South Asian. We are a majority Muslim club, but open to absolutely everyone. And we're now, our train seems to be on the tracks and seems to be going now.
Yeah. So were there any hiccups when you started? Because you started basically after the first COVID lockdown happened, where everybody was sat indoors for 6 months waiting for, to breathe fresh air again. Exactly. My side of things, I had a lot of players in my team drop off as a result of COVID, for different reasons, mostly family reasons. People had kind of like moved on. They'd football was like a pastime for them now.
Yeah.
But did you guys have it the other way around? Did you guys struggle? Did you guys have a lot of interest because of that, where people were eager to play?
Yeah, we had the opposite really, where people were eager to play. People were eager to get out. People were ready to get back out and start playing football. A lot of us missed football as well. I think also we've got quite a young side. I think that went in our favor as well, because a lot of those guys were college, university, and they were doing college and university from home. They were studying from home. So it was a good escape release for them. And I think that benefited us as well. If, as I was saying to you, when we were looking at like coaches and stuff like that, and we were looking at the older guys, it was harder because some of them did decide it was the perfect time to get married. Some of them were, obviously living at home, a lot more at home. So did have children and stuff like that. So it was harder to get them on board. But the younger guys, were ready, and, they've been locked in. They were dying to get out. So it was easier for us in that sense.
Oh, yeah. God. I'll put a photo up on the screen for when the podcast comes out of what the state of our team looked like when we came out of lockdown. We played, our first game was Hounslow. We played, it was awful. We had to travel out an hour to Hounslow. None of us had done any exercise, not even a training session. My hair is quite like short now, but in there, my hair was like the longest it's ever been. I'm a scruffy old white git in the photos. It's overflowing. I look more like a hobo than I do a normal human being, and I've got a belly on me, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of that, and I had to travel out an hour for the first game. I think we were all tired before we even got to the ground.
From the travel,
from the travel. Like, I hadn't left the house in 5 months.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, I'm playing at, we're driving past Twickenham for our first game, and we're all from Reading, and it's just like, oh my God, I want to go to bed already. And then we kind of never looked back after that, though. It was good, but obviously from 2020 to 2023, you guys have, from my point of view as an onlooker, you guys have come along quite a long way in terms of your development. Your first few seasons, I would say maybe you were like mid-range, a Div 1 team, called a lower mid-range team, and then last season you kind of kicked on, and everything came together for you guys to be in the President's Cup final, which is the competition that we won last summer. For anyone that follows Hype Train FC on YouTube or knows me as a person, I mention it every 5 minutes because it was the first competition that I've won in my time in football, apart from like youth football and junior football. But in terms of adult football, it's the first thing I've won. And I had to do it starting my own club. Yeah, I got close. I played for Woodley United before Hype Train, and we got close in 2 cup finals, but the club's ruled by political hands out of my control, where there's a lot of drop down culture. So
typical.
So all of the lads that got to the cup finals
were dropped.
Or we were dropped, or we were kind of had our roles rearranged, and we had different managers come in. We kind of, and we same with the league as well. We were 1 game away from winning a league away at Henley Town, and the hierarchy in place decided to play a lot of the drop downs. And they got beat convincingly, and we're all just sat there like scratching our heads. So when it finally came to the time for us to win the President's Cup, it was it's without a doubt my favourite day on planet Earth so far. Being in that environment, and I just kind of want to touch on it with you guys because you were the successors to the President's Cup. For what I believe is such an important competition in the East Berks League, gives an avenue to clubs that are developing, growing, establishing themselves as well. So talk to me about your experience at the Cup final for yourself and the squad.
Yeah, to be honest with you, echo some of the words you were saying about your old club, because when we played, a lot of us were ex-Falcons players. I don't know if you are familiar with Falcons or...
No.
Yeah. So they represented the EBFL a few years ago. So a lot of our local boys, especially the South Asian Pakistani boys, that was one of the first after frontline majority Pakistani clubs from Slough, and they had that culture of if you got to a final or a semi-final, panic, and my mate down the road can do 50 kick-ups, he might be half decent for the final. It was that kind of stuff that really was what helped or made us think, let's make our own club where we avoid all of that stuff. We don't get the guy that used to be good in 1955 and the guy that was related to somebody, and we wanted to keep it. We build it up, we do it alongside the other things as well that we wanted to start the club for. But the President's Cup was definitely a massive step for us. It's one of the biggest landmarks so far for FC Baylis, and it would probably be the biggest thing we've ever done. Whatever we do going forward now, that would have been the baseline. That would have been the step that made us who we are, if you like. So it's massive to us. The day was unbelievable. I was saying to take one when everybody, because we watch football. We're massive football fans, and we watch these football players and professional footballers, and we only dream to be that. So this is the closest thing that we'll ever get to it. But when you're going on the week of the final, you're going over to your friend's house or your family member's house, and they're like, "Oh, you got final this weekend. You must be up for it." Everything around it is they're saying to you what you're having for breakfast. Make sure you're watching what you have. Make sure how the boys feel. Everything is about the cup final. We were going to work, and colleagues at work are saying to you, "Cup final. We're going to be there. Make sure you don't smash it." And the buzz around it is second to none. There's not really much, other things that can give you that kind of similar buzz. So we loved it, and as I was saying, it seems to have been set up for us almost. It was almost kind of written in the stars, if you like. Everything about it, the build up to it. We had, the 4 games before that, the way we were playing, the way the boys were stuck together, and there was a lot of downfalls that happened during last season. We had the boys. We got twins. Their father passed away. Another one of our guys, his father passed away. We had one of our young friends of ours that we went to school with who, he was murdered. So these things happened during the season, and it, in a weird way, boosted us up or kicked us on. We realized this is where, this is our safe haven. This is where we can be the best version of ourselves, but enjoy a safe place to play football and forget about all the other kind of things that are going on in the world. And that boosted us, really. We added to our squad as well. We had some really good personalities come in that helped us to get there. But there's no explaining really what that feeling is. And we're just hoping that it's going to kick on. As you know, Rob, I didn't know the scoreline in the final. I haven't done my homework still. I don't know the scoreline. I think it was 3-1. I'm going with 3-1. I'm probably going to get corrected somewhere down the line, but I think it was 3-1.
Yeah, so about a cup final and being like in a manager point of view, the week leading up to the cup final, I don't think I had a second where I didn't think about it. Were you the same?
Absolutely.
Every single minute of every single day was just, my body was doing, say, work at home or at football training or doing bits and bobs, going food shopping. But every single thought in the back of my head was crawling about our cup final.
Yeah, honestly.
And everything. And I just, before we talk about the final itself, you guys had a bit of a palaver with the league actually getting to the final because the semi-final had to be replayed 3 days before the final. So It was like a Thursday, Sunday Europa League style game where you had to play Reading Tigers for a second time in the semi-final. And then you go straight into a cup final 2 days later. Was it on the Saturday or the Sunday? So was
Saturday.
it Thursday? So you had 1 day to basically prepare for a cup final.
Yep.
Because we qualified for the cup final. We beat the old Windsor reserve team who you guys played in the final.
Yeah.
And then we had 4 weeks. And within that 4 weeks, we played the team Cressex in the final 2 weeks before the final.
Yeah.
And it was, so the final that we had was a 4-3 thriller. And it was like the most back and forth game you'll ever watch.
Sounds like it, yeah.
But the league game was the most dead 0-0 ever. It was the worst game of our season. So I think both teams were sounding each other out.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was about 35 degrees. We played down at Calcott Rec, which is this big open field. It was really windy, really hot.
Yeah.
Cressex were wearing a black kit and they were dying in it. And we were wearing our orange and black kit. Everyone was suffering. It was one of those dead games. If you kick the ball away at our home pitch really far, it takes you about a minute to get it. So if we're looking at our stats in the Premier League at home games, and like how much is the ball in play for? Hype Train at home, God, we're worse than Newcastle for that. We're minutes not played because
the ball was going to get the ball.
Yeah, who's going to get the ball? It's an hour walk down there, and everybody's like, "Oh, can we get another ball?" And it's a nightmare. But it was the worst game that we had. And so, I had 3 weeks to prepare where we had a meeting with all of our squad or some of the members of our squad about, okay, who's going to manage, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. So we had 3 to 4 weeks to sort this out. You guys had 24 hours between winning the semi to being in the final. So first of all, what was the whole thing about replaying the game? Why did the league make you guys do that again?
it was something because we had cup-tied players from both sides. So they had players that hadn't played more than 3 league games before the cup semi-final or before the cup competition, and we had that same problem as well. What was frustrating was that you prior to the semi-final, you have to submit your team sheets.
Yeah,
I think 48 hours before.
It's typical. Yeah, so they do message. We had League Sec Gary Reeve in our instance reach out to us like a week before to say, do you know what your squad is? If you do, get it into me ASAP.
Yep.
And again, because we had a month, it was typically a week before because they had to get the programs printed as well. So we kind of already knew, and we kind of had that already in place. So that it might be different for you guys because you didn't know what it, you had such a quick turnover. But
this is for the semi-final, so not even for the final.
The first one, yeah. But no, we did it a week before. But we were messaged way in advance because it was different.
I'm pretty sure we were as well. There was good notice. Gary was speaking to Akib, our club sec, and Akib then sent across the team sheet. I remember being in a group. I'm pretty sure I might be wrong, but I remember being in a group, and we sent across the team sheets and stuff like that, and it wasn't picked up. And that was what my little bit of frustration was, that we had enough time for somebody to pick it up and say, by the way, these players are not, they're not allowed to play. You can't have these guys in the squad. What had happened is when we played, Reading Tigers are the ones that submitted the complaint and were like, these guys, because what had happened is we signed a player that played for Frontline. He was actually an ex-player of ours, went to Frontline, and then we took him midway through the season. He wasn't playing there last year. But one of the first games Frontline played was against Reading Tigers, and he played in that game.
Oh, so they've seen...
Yeah.
So they're like, hold on a minute.
Yeah. Exactly. It wasn't the case, and the league said that as well. He was registered prior, but because he was injured, he didn't play 3 or 4 games before that fixture. He only had come in to us about 6 weeks before the fixture or something like that. So that was the issue. But they submitted the inquiry, this is what's happened. And they had a player that had the same problem.
Oh, God.
So we said to the league, look, we've both done it. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we done it and they didn't. If that was the case, you would have kicked us out and they would have gone through. But we've both done it. Why are we replaying this fixture?
Who won the first leg? The first semi?
We did.
Yeah. Was it convincing?
It wasn't convincing, no. It was 2.
So it was, yeah.
It was 2-1, I think.
So... if the game was, say, 5-0 in your favour, do you reckon the league would have said, look, let's be real, we'll put Baylis in the final because you both made a boo-boo? Because it's like a 1-0 or a 2-1, the league could be looking at it going, oh, because of that, it might change the game.
Yeah.
But if it was like an absolute drubbing, do you reckon the league would have had a different point of view?
Good question, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. Personally, I think we always say...
What's the point? They'd say,
exactly.
In my head says, what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, they actually done us a massive favour. We ended up being so up for that second game that I can't remember what the scoreline was again. But they didn't have a chance in the second game. To be honest with you, Rob, in the first game, although the scoreline was tight, we missed so many chances. And until they went 1-0 up out of a penalty that came out of nowhere, which was debatable as well, which woke us up and we ended up scoring the next 2 goals. We went into extra time. It was 1-1 in the 90. We scored in the last 5 or so. And then we scored in the extra time. But the scoreline was close, but the game wasn't really that close. And in the second game, we were so up for it, and we used that. I used that. I took advantage. I said, boys, these guys, everyone's against us. What are you going to do? Are you going to crumble? We know backs against wall. What are we going to do? And it worked. They were well up for it.
Time. What was the score in the second leg? Was it a more convincing win or again?
It was like 5-1.
Yeah, 5-1
or 6-1 or something.
Yeah. Where was it played? Because I think it was played at Iverheath. So
yeah.
The Tigers from Reading probably had to come out on a Thursday midweek, and that's probably why they. It's probably their outcome for it. I know David and Jacob that run it, and they said to me at the time that they were going to struggle a late notice on a Thursday, which is fair enough. So from that, going in from a Thursday to a Saturday, do you reckon that guys put you in good stead for the final? Do you think that you were sharper and fresher because it was like so close to the event that you guys had no choice, but you were already kind of like clicked into gear for the final? Because you didn't have time to overthink it, or do you do you think that going into it, like, oh my god, 48 hours notice, this would go against us against what is a really well-established team in the league in Old Windsor? So what was your kind of mindset going into it?
Honestly, as I was saying to you, it was almost the way everything was set up, the replay as well. We said it, if you look at the first fixture we had against Reading Tigers, that 2-1, we're thinking they were up for it. Old Windsor are a stronger side. If they're up for it, it's going to be a battle and a half. They made us replay the semi-final, and that I can't point to words what happened in the club within those days. It was almost like the way we kind of came together, the way we kind of all realized, it's not a given. We have to really come together. It helped us in a way. And then obviously we didn't train in the week. The match was our training session. If that was a 2-1 again, then, you're looking at recovering, mentally recovering, physically recovering, and going into a fight. Where we won 5-1, we made all of our subs, we rested the boys, this, that, the other. Was, the way the roll on, roll off. It's not roll on actually in that. I think it's 5 from 5, but
yeah, 5 from 5.
We did our subs, everyone got minutes, everyone's happy. You know what it's like when you're happy, it's so hard to take a team down that is not only playing good football, but is in a good mood, and then everything kind of fits in. So that it helped us. Winning helped us more as well on the Thursday, but it helped us as well. It brought us more together than anything else, to be honest with you.
And then let's go to the final, playing Old Windsor. And for people that don't know, Old Windsor in the East Bucks region are one of the big boy established clubs. They've really grown and developed well over the past few years, to the point now that they're really well established. Everybody's got a lot of respect for them. The guys that run the club are very, very nice. Got nothing bad to say about them whatsoever. They run a great club with running two teams is so difficult, especially on the same day.
Yeah.
So talk about your experience in the game and itself in the final. How did you guys get on? What was your kind of takeaway? What was going through your head in that big event?
So I think knowing what they're like helped, because we knew they were a big, strong physical side. They can play football, they're not just a big, strong physical side. They're very good at what they do. As you said, they're very organised as well, very well run, good coaching staff. We knew it was going to be strong in the midfield, and we knew that it was going to be, we knew that the thing is, when we've played against Old Windsor, they've relied a lot on crosses in the box, set pieces, and that is probably one of our biggest weaknesses. We can't defend from set pieces, to save our life. It's shocking. It's shocking. So we were looking at that, thinking, all right, cool. That's where they're going to win the game. That's where we're going to lose the game. Now, the one thing that we're quite good at is keeping the ball, and the thing is, when you're chasing shadows, you can't. It's so hard to mentally say to yourself, "That's it. We're going to win this game," and we just kept making them chase us. That was honestly the main take I took from it when we were watching over it. As good as they were in certain areas, they were good on the counter. They were good at attacking. They put the ball in behind fairly well, and when the ball's in the box, they're a bit awkward. When we had the ball and when we play our football, going from back to front, hitting our wingers, we aren't very easy to play against. And I think we just, on the day, everything fitted in our favour. Luck was on our side as well. I don't get me wrong. I think we deserved to win anyway, but we really frustrated the hell out of them and stopped them from playing. Stopped the set pieces. I think their goal was from a corner.
Yeah, it would be. On the date of recording, it's the 4th of September, and just the weekend gone, our team, Hype Train, were back in the East Bucks Prem, and we played the Old Windsor first team, and a lot of them, they got a big centre-back called Chris, who very good footballer. He's about 8 foot wide, 10 foot tall. It seems when he attacks set pieces, he just comes alive, and he's very quick. He gets a lot of goals and assists, and our first, we scored a penalty against them where their goalkeeper has decided to. So we've hit the channels for one of our wingers to chase on Mitchell. Mitchell's constantly chasing the keeper. The keeper's decided to drag the ball back into the penalty area just to pick it up. Completely unaware our player's like right next to him, goes to pick up the ball, takes the player's legs out, and then
penalty.
We get the penalty, we score it, and then they get a free kick. I kid you not, 10 seconds later from kickoff, they put the ball in the box. Chris, their centre back, heads it back on, virtually a tap in for their player. They're very, very good at set pieces.
Very good at set pieces.
Very good, and it's constantly. I was shouting at my players every time as soon as the ball went out of play. Lads, get in and everything. Blinding everywhere. It was you've got to be manically quick to organise yourselves against them. And
even if you're organised, it's not easy to defend against them.
Exactly, because then even if you're organised, they can still be bigger and stronger than you. They can just push you out of the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So especially in a cup final as well, where you guys are going to have to be under the pressure constantly. That extra concentration as well when you're under the pressure as well is just a different feeling to a league game as well.
Absolutely.
Especially because every minute in the cup final feels like it's 10. And then especially in the second half. In our cup final in the President's Cup, we went 2-0 up quite quick in the first half. And we felt like about 35 minutes had passed. And then I asked the referee, everyone for our second goal goes over to celebrate with the team, and I'm kind of telling the bench to calm down, and I go to the ref and say, how long's been played? And he said 11 minutes. And I couldn't believe it. I was so upset and everything. And then because all of a sudden our squad are like, when you're 2-0 up in the cup final, I was like, lads, there's still half an hour to play, calm down.
Yeah.
And then the second half, when we went 3-1 up, they got a goal from a set piece. I think they scored directly from a corner. I think it just swung all the way in. There's 8 bodies going towards the ball. It just bounces in between everyone.
How many?
And then 2-1 going into the second half. Then the third goal happened, and I went over and asked the ref how long's left. And I felt about half an hour pass in the second half. He said, "Oh, it's 55 on the clock," and I'm like, "Oh my god!" Honestly, it was so long. And then it went to 4-2, and then 4. So they scored in extra time to make it 4-3. We went to extra time. No. Sorry, in extra time.
Added time.
Minutes. Added time at the end of the 90. And they scored from a corner, another set piece. They've overloaded as they've won a header at the back post. It's gone to 4-3. And we've said, "Oh, referee, how long's left?" And he was like, "Okay, it's 3 minutes." That, honestly, that 3 minutes was the longest 3 minutes of my life, because we've gone up, we've put the ball into a corner, we've had a player clattered into. It should have been a free kick, but the liner's like, "No, get up." And then they've played on, and it's gone on for about another 8 minutes, I swear to God. And the only actual thing that happened in there was I won a header, we put it in the corner, and they blew the whistle. But that mental thing in your head at the time, it makes you go completely haywire sometimes, because you don't understand when to game manage. It's one of those out of body things as well, where you just have to be in the flow. And so how many guys did you have turn up? How many supporters did you have turn up to the final for your cup final against Windsor? Was it packed?
It was packed. There was loads. There was loads of people. There was people that would never usually come were there. And not everyone was there to see us win, but they were there.
Oh, yeah. They never are. Don't worry. In our cup final, we were playing on one of the last regular season days. So we, on the same day we played, they did the Challenge Cup final between Britwell and AFC Winkfield at 5:30. So we were playing at 2:00. There was basically nobody there apart from a few supporters from our lot and a load of the Wags and the friends from Cressex. But they outnumbered us by 20-1, I think. Our stadium was barely at Burnham FC. We were basically empty until the 2:00 games would finish, and then everybody filtered into the stadium for the end of the game. So largely everybody was there as we were lifting the trophy and everything like that. And then by the time the 5:30 game come about, it was rammed. It was rammed solid because Britwell were in the final as well. They're heavily supported and everything. And do you know what? I think that went to our favour because we could just focus, and there wasn't a lot of lot of noise on the sideline for us to focus on. It was just hearing stuff from the dugout and focusing on the game itself.
We didn't feel any pressure because there was it was basically quiet, and it really focused our game a lot. And then in the second half, when it's a few people start to trickle in, that's when you start to feel the pressure a little bit more. That's why the first half flew by, and then the second half felt like it went on for 5 hours comparatively. Was that your first trophy for Baylis? Mate, that's so obviously you mentioned to me in take one that you guys had a 5 to 7 year plan, and you won a trophy in year 3. So talk to me about that. I love talking about structures and that 5-year plan. So where did you guys imagine yourself to be this summer ahead of winning the President's Cup? Where did you guys kind of think this is where we're going to be in 2023? So to be honest with you, so the President's Cup wasn't in the plan, or a cup wasn't in the plan. First season, that COVID year was just to check out what we were going to look like, and we knew that it was going to be a bit of a up and down year with lockdown and stuff. Second season, we wanted to see what the league was like in terms of the teams around us, how competitive they are, how we're going to find competing against these teams. The third season was to establish ourselves within Division 1 and for teams to know, all right, FC Baylis are a half decent side here. They're going to be a bit awkward. And then going into this year, what we wanted to do was get promoted. That was what we wanted to do. So we were looking at the top 4 last year and promotion this year. Last year, we finished 6th, and the President Cup. I mean, if you, in our little group, my assessment of last year was a lot more harsh than what other people on the outside are kind of, giving us a lot of credit for. And it was a bit of a damper with all after, obviously this is a lot after the celebrations and all that. When the season came to a close and stuff, I put a little assessment in our WhatsApp group saying to our coaching staff, this is what I think went with our season. We ended 6th. To me, that was a failure. We lost every single away game, but won every single home game last year. We were so up and down. It was ridiculous. So although we did fantastic things, I want to take nothing away from what we achieved last year, because that was my first trophy as a manager. I didn't think I would be able to take a team into a final. You know what it's like, Rob. There's 30 personalities you're dealing with. You've got 30 people with their own lives that they've got loads going on. By the way, some of them have too much things going on. Some of them have nothing going on. You're managing all these people. You got to keep everyone happy. When you're picking your squad, you're dropping players, all this and that. So that it was a massive achievement for myself personally. I still got the trophy at home and look at it pretty much every day. But I don't let it distract me from what the plan was. It's a good sense of achievement. It's something good that we love talking about. We are quite driven as well. Like, I'm a salesman by my 9 to 5. So I'm so target driven. I like that, building, setting targets and trying to get there, overachieve and all that kind of stuff. And I love football. Absolutely love football. Since a kid, people used to make jokes that when I watch football, I say this, you might be similar. That's why me and you do what we do. I like watching the analysis at the end of the game. I like watching the build up and talk about tactics and how they're going to set up and where the weak links are and who your strong players are. I liked all of that stuff. I was attracted to that as well as the football side of things. So although I never wanted to manage, I always knew that I could. I just, it's like with everything. Oh, I could win Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? But until you're in the hot seat, you don't know. So, when it fell upon me to manage, I feel like I just took it with both hands and was like, you know what? I'm here now. I'm just going to do the best I can. The thing with management, it's all about delegation. That's the truth. You give somebody a job, tell them how good they can be at it, and let them thrive. And that's what we've done well. We've put people into certain places to help build the club up to where it needs to be. So as much as I like to take credit for a lot of the things that's going on, I'd never, ever take away from our background staff. We got our club sec, Akib, some of the things he does that goes so unnoticed. Again, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. We got a club treasurer who look after all of our money, make sure the money's, and that's very important for a club that doesn't really make much money, and stuff like that. Our coaching staff now, who we've got. So we're lucky that we've got the team around us to help the boys do what they are doing, because all they ever think about is football. They don't need to think about anything else.
So aside from yourself, how many guys do you have that are helping to volunteer with Baylis? Because at Hype Train, it's pretty much a one-stop shop. I do pretty much everything, and then I get Sam, who's my auxiliary, who's my club chairman and twin brother. He does all the auxiliary stuff if I need a helping hand. And then I can delegate to, we have a management committee. It's more advisory though, where if I'm ever stuck with something, I go to them and say, what's your thoughts? What's your opinions? Yeah. If I need help, I can kind of like throw something at them. So how many guys do you have that you can kind of like lean on and, help get you through?
Well, this is me, Samir, Idi, Akib, Naman, Masood, and now hopefully somebody else is going to get on board, Raf. So there's about 7 of us. With that, what we do at the start of every season is we always highlight everybody's role. So because, as you know, sometimes when you got too many chiefs, you can't. And one thing is important, being this is why, you know, working and earning and stuff like that is important. You get to see a hierarchical structure. So I'm the club chairman. We now got a sponsor, and the guy that's sponsoring us, Big Boys Kitchen, Amir, he's now helping. So as you were saying, like an MC advisory, that's what his role is. For myself personally, he supports me. If I need anything, I go to him. What do you think about this? Blah blah blah. So he's a little bit in the background, but he's somebody that supports us as well. But everybody's got their role. So as I said, the club treasurer, anything money related, when the players say money, anything, £1, 50p, I don't deal with it. I say, here you go, there's your man. You deal with him and deal with him only. And it's better that way because, you know, with Idi and Samir, they're our first team coaches. So they run all the training drills. I'll tell them what I want the club to do. So we want to play a particular way of football. Let's do passing combination today. They'll run those drills. You know, I support in the coaching as well, so I'll do that as well. But it's run that way, so that way, instead of it being a dictator and a you know, me saying this is what we're doing today, we're doing that. Everybody brings something to the table. Everybody knows what they're bringing to the table as well, so nobody oversteps or doesn't do enough kind of thing. It's not easy to find that. We're lucky this year we've got that. We struggled with it previous years, and you know, there's, as you can imagine, loads of fallouts because people weren't happy with the position they were in. And I'm quite young. I'm still quite young, even in amongst the management team. So that was another hard thing, getting people and saying, can you support me? And then them saying, let me tell you how it should be done. Did you have that as well?
Well, it's more like an endemic thing that I'm hearing. The more people that I'm speaking to, either in person or on this podcast, the main gripe that a lot of people have sometimes are that they don't like being told how things should be done. For example, I'll be more specific. If somebody's got if somebody's a little bit more old school in football and they've been around for a while and they say this is the only way, that's where people kind of say, hold on a minute. Exactly. What about doing it this way? Nope. The immediate shutdown of an opinion is kind of where the main reason I started Hype Train was so that I could have a more liberal approach to running a football team. The name's quite liberal. The project's quite liberal. I was at a club that was quite oppressive with having thoughts and opinions. So I was at a standstill constantly with, you know, being told this is how it is and this is the only way you can run a football club, or this is the only way you can do this, and this. So I just wanted a little bit more independence. And, you find people over time that fit or can fit within that mold of what you want to create and deliver. I don't find nowadays that players, from my opinion, whenever a player joins a team like Hype Train, where it's a little bit more relaxed, expressive, and a little bit more nuance, where we're learning on the job and we're developing, and people are allowed to have an opinion, they struggle going to clubs that are a little bit more iron-fisted. Yep. And having a little bit more archaic points of view as well. So that's kind of where I see it. And whenever I speak to people, either on the podcast or outright, they always ask me, oh, you guys always seem to have players, or you have a lot of turnover and are bringing in new players. How do you do it? And I think it's as simple as, people want to play at a positive environment, and you can't make people happy by basically telling them, here's 55 rules and you're going to hate 50 of them. You've got to be in an environment where, you know, you've got to make it very easy. Like kind of what you guys are doing now, where you've got a lot of delegation and it's very simple. This is what A, B, C, D through to Z do. That's kind of, players just need to turn up and enjoy their football at the end of the day. And if they, you need to give them some rules and some outlook. Here's what the club's going to be planning on doing. You're going to hear about this and this. But largely, they just want to get on and play and be part of an environment. They don't want to be weighed down by politics. I hated it. That's kind of why I cut ties with my old clubs, and I was just like, I'm done with that. Yeah. You don't want to be in too much. People don't want to be in negative environments. It's as simple as that. And
exactly. Especially not for your hobby.
No, exactly, as well. Also, this is something that I do on a Saturday afternoon and a Sunday morning, so it eats up pretty much every second of free time I've got. Exactly. As an organizer, and the players don't want to turn up and have, questions on their head or doubts anyway, do they? They want to enjoy it, I think.
It's that simple. It's that simple, Rob. Yeah, it was one of what I think. For some reason, when we were growing up playing football was ruled by an iron fist, and this is how we do it. Make sure you're doing this. Make sure you're here. I mean, we say to them, you commit 2 days a week. 1 day's the training, 1 day's the match day. You know, I say to the boys, what you do outside of football is up to you. If you're getting drunk on a Friday night, that's up to you. If you can't turn up on a Saturday and do the job, that's a different, you know what I mean? You might start seeing yourself not in the team anymore. But, you know, what you do is up to you. The only thing we say to them is your conduct, you know, your timekeeping, and they have to do the line. If there's no lino on a Saturday, the subs. Other than that, it's very, very much, you lot are here to play football. That's what you came to us for. We're here to provide you a football club. I don't get them involved in the background of stuff if they don't need to be. I don't ask them or make them, you know, reliable for anything. You probably have the same thing. I have boys ring me on a Saturday asking if they got shin pads. Have you got any shin pads available, Gaffer? Can you imagine if I gave them an ounce of responsibility, go pick up the kit or something like that?
Yeah. The default to that, Haseeb, is to basically have an approach now where you always take a couple of spare pairs with you.
Yeah.
And then you never have to even contemplate that. You just say, yeah, I've got some.
Yeah, exactly. We've got some in the first aid bag. We've got no first aid equipment, but we've got shin pads.
Oh, we've got 2 pairs. We've got a pair of small ones that people can wear cut socks with, and then we've got a big pair for normal socks as well. Yeah, we've got some old school ones and some new school ones. Just, you know, people, you know, sometimes the shin pads aren't good enough for the players as well. Oh, what do you mean? I want the other ones. So we just take both. Just
have you seen the shin pads they're wearing now?
What you mean?
So small.
Ones? Yeah, I know. I think Jack Grealish has too much influence over that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah,
with the tiny microscopic ones, and we've got a couple of players that do the low-hanging socks in our games, and it just weirds me out because as a defender, I play left back or centre back, and I just get, when I see stuff like that, I think, oh, target acquired. I don't know why, but that's just your brain saying, oh, they're there for the taking. If you want to put in a harsh foot. You know, what's going to protect them and everything.
Exactly.
Apart from God. It's I just I don't get involved with that now. I'm set in my ways of how I have my socks and shin pads and how I organise my game, and I leave them to it. To be honest, it's not for me to lose sleep over anymore.
Exactly. It's quite enjoyable now watching this new generation. I mean, from what I was growing up watching, like I said, I'm still young, but I'm talking about these new wave of kids that are coming in. The way they are in the change rooms and stuff like that is different to the way we were. They need music on. And I don't have nothing against music. It's good to have it on, but it's those kind of rituals they have with these lucky socks and these shin pads. When we played, we wore the shirts that were from the laundrette, the bag chucked in the middle. You put your shirt on. If you got socks, you got socks. If they're different, they're different. But now they cut their socks. They have to put the white socks underneath, the black socks on top. Don't you see that as well?
Yeah, it happens all the time. And I twisted my ankle in pre-season. I had to play outfield, and I was jumping up for the air, just landed in a pivot.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I've never worn the grip socks that players wear for underneath, and it's the first time I've ever worn them in matches this season because all of a sudden I found with my ankle, I'm like, oh my god, my ankle's twisting in my boot a bit too much. So I'm wearing them now. So now I'm wearing grip socks for extra support, and now my brain's saying, why haven't I been doing that for years? And everything So now I've kind of turned a corner at 32.
There you go.
With the way that I prepare in games, but you go through years of conditioning, especially when you're younger. That just wear the biggest shin pads you got and wear some socks, and then you go out and play. Just on the younger people, I'm asking everybody this question, especially with older generations in football and younger generations. So 18, 19, 20s, all through to players that are hitting their mid to late 40s. There seems to be a big divide with mindset and how people approach football in terms of availability and commitment in general. Do you guys suffer from, because you've got a young squad, do you have a lot of differing commitment week to week with the lads that you get playing football or not? Because from experience speaking to people, there seems to be a bit of a struggle trying to get people to commit as much as what you as a club owner or an administrator want them to be. So do you guys go through any of these teething pains dealing with these crossover generations where old school players turn up for everything, including trainings that they're injured at, compared to younger lads that will watch Arsenal on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night in the Champions League.
We've had a bit of a flip the other way. It's the older generation. Thing is, honestly, we got such a young team, Rob. I mean, our oldest player is 32 years old.
Okay, yeah.
So not only is he older than me, he's not that old. I know a lot of people like to think
he's still
32. Young. There you go. You're 32.
Yeah, I'm 32. He's still young. He's still young.
I'm only 29. He's not that old. You know, he's young.
Famous last words.
But he's our oldest player. The thing is, he was always a superstar at whatever club he was at. So he's not a senior player. Do you know what I mean? He's not like a senior. He's just a normal superstar. He turns up when he wants. He's got a Range Rover, so he turns up in his nice Range Rover. He rolls on a pitch with his fancy boots and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? He's not a senior leadership player kind of thing. They're the ones that seem to be probably getting married soon. You know, relationships, so they're busy on weekends. They can't commit every single week. It's the youngsters for me that they're there every week. These boys out in college, you start in university. It's the ones that travel away to university. We've lost two big players that have studied away, obviously. But we seem to be... coming now into a purple patch. Before that, we did have commitment problems with our better players. You know, the guys that would give you a 10 out of 10 performance. And you're like, are you there next week? Oh, I'm going away next week. I'm like... I'd rather you play shit. You know what I mean? I'd rather you do nothing on the Saturday when you're available. Don't give me 10 out of 10 and then tell me you're unavailable. So it has been a bit hit and miss. I think this year, now that we've got a good squad together, we can really assess it. But we've had commitment problems like everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's. I've been speaking to a lot of people, and every club is going through the same. A lot of clubs are going through it worse than what maybe yourself at Baylis are going through. Clubs are largely finding that getting people engaged with the content of being in a football club is the major issue. That
Absolutely.
People are quite sleepy, and that the option of having other things to do on a Saturday or a Sunday morning is quite difficult to overcome. Such as now, like, I'm part of a breed where all I care about is football. I'll be honest. I've always been honest. The only thing I care about is playing football or managing or being involved in my club. And I find other things stressful. Like, you know, if I was given the option of, oh, do you want to go out to a family meal? Or no, I've got to prepare for a football game.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Don't want to do it.
Exactly.
So my brain is completely like wired. So I'm perverse in a nature where other people in the populace and everyone around the country will probably be like, oh my God, he needs to get a life type of thing. But but other people will find it quite easy to not go to football and do other things, such as go to the cinema with their girlfriends late one night and then, I don't want to do that tomorrow morning. It just seems to be an easy way out. There seems to be easier ways out. Whereas my brain's like, no, I've got time to everything.
Rob, I'm married. I've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
I hear some of the boys tell me, you know what it's like. I'm married. No, I don't know what it's like. I'm here with you. I'm here every week. There's not a Saturday I'll miss. There's not a training session I'll miss. You know, I think last year I missed my training session, which was on my birthday. I had to pull out last minute because my missus we still trained, but my missus was like, you're being an idiot now. I've prepared all of this for you. It's your birthday. Give me 20 minutes of your time. And I was like, all right, I won't go today. But
No.
do you know,
You should have had a backbone.
I should have. Yeah, you know what? I
had
probably
backbone.
should have.
If that's me, I'm saying see you in an hour.
Yeah, you know, I'll be honest with you, I think I did an appearance. I think from my memory, I've gone there, I've set up, I've given the footballs, I've said hello
And
to
then you've
everyone,
gone.
and then I've gone. I
Okay,
can't just stay away, you know what I mean?
So you've got the attendance. You've got your attendance on the sheet.
I've got ticked off.
You've got it ticked off. So you've been there in spirit.
There you go.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're coming from. So I don't. The thing is, my problem is I say to people, if you love football, you commit to it. That's where you're going to be. I don't get that half. Do you know what I mean? If you're not committed,
Half in,
don't do it.
half out,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know what you
measures.
signed up for. You know. The thing is, even we got a new guy, Masood. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long, long time. He watches football a lot. He loves football. Absolutely loves football. He's a huge United fan. So imagine the conversations I've been having with him for the last 3 or 4 years about football, where he's been so stressed. He's like, I can't do it anymore. I can't watch this team anymore. And I said to him, forget that. Come over here, you know, because this is an element of control that you have now. You can actually influence something. This stuff on the TV, I love football, don't get me wrong, I love watching the Premier League, but I've gone away from that whole, you know, I'm a United fan, they lost yesterday. I got over it so quick. And I know a lot of Arsenal fans are going to be on me and all week. I couldn't care less. I got a game on Saturday to prepare for. Do you know what I mean? So that's not what I'm looking at now. It's so much like, oh, we lost. Oh, it hurts a little bit. Go out, go for a walk. And you're like, okay, what am I doing on Saturday? Who's playing? What am I preparing for on training now? I don't care about what happened with Man United yesterday kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I'm completely teetotal that way. I don't actually like watching Premier League football if my mind's occupied with my own team. I just don't do it. I'm a Newcastle fan, and when we played Old Windsor this past Saturday, they were the 5:30 game, and they invited us back to the clubhouse. They got on some nice food for everybody.
Yeah.
And Brighton were playing Newcastle in there, and Brighton scored, and I was the only Newcastle fan in there. I'm getting ribbed, obviously. Naturally, we've had a bad start to the season. But there are some people that ride and die by when Ferguson would score a goal, I'd be in like distress, or my brain doesn't work like that anymore. I'm more than happy. My mindset is, whilst you're young and whilst you have the ability to move about and put on a pair of football boots, I feel like players should do that. And because I always say to the players that in my team that buy a Reading season ticket, look, Reading are so bad at football. You've only got X amount of years to kick a football about. Why have you committed to doing that instead of playing? And I do get disappointed, I must admit. Whenever I know that I can't control it and people are going to do what they're going to do, but I honestly get disappointed because I feel like they've got 40 or 50 years after they stop playing to have a season ticket and to indulge in that lifestyle. But we live in such a short, narrow window of opportunity to put on a pair of football boots and really commit to it that I can't see. That's why, especially now when I'm 32, when I started the team, I was 28. And, I'm now in my 5th year. So like at the end of that first 5-year step that you take as a club. And, I just don't see, when I was 28, I was like, oh, okay, I need to make the most of my time, what I can. And I don't understand why people would do that to themselves. And mainly because these are nice people that are good football players and they should be doing it. And they love it as much as what I do. And then I'm like, oh, come on. So I always encourage players to play ahead of watching.
Play while you can, yeah. We ban all of the football talk, like Premier League talk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It puts people off as well. When you're worried about what happened to United and Liverpool and Newcastle, you're not warming up now. You're watching the game and all this kind of stuff. So we say, outside of football, do what you like, but while you're at FC Baylis, only FC Baylis is allowed to be spoken about.
100%. I've got the same mantra there. If somebody turns up to the ground, let's say for a 2:00, and they make a little jab at a United fan that they're losing, I don't mind that. It doesn't matter if it's United or anyone else, but I don't mind as long as soon as we get the warm-up going and we do a team photo, everybody's switched on, it's done, and then we focus on that. Because then when people are like talking about, we've got a few Villa and West Ham fans in the team, and when they're talking about their teams, my brain goes haywire when we're about to warm up and there's people casually talking about, my
mid-table clubs.
Not even that. I just don't even know. My brain doesn't know how to comprehend, because as a manager, I'm thinking, God, are they going to be focused? Are they going to be up for it?
Exactly.
Are they going to want to give a bigger shift? If Villa are losing, is it going to impact their performance? Are they going to get upset? And so I've gone one way now. I used to have a Reading season ticket for years when I was younger, and as soon as I went away to university, I never got another season ticket because I just wanted to play football, and I just So I've kind of like, you kind of need to get out of that whilst you're young to really understand. But it takes a lot, and but hopefully that changes. I think cost of living is kind of forcing people down one way or the other. They're only going to do one thing or the other, especially because there's so much cost attributed to grassroots teams at the moment as well. I don't know. I'll ask you a question. Have they upped any of your costs for the season, such as training facilities? Do any like replacement kit cost more? The league fees have gone up in our league. Have you found it a bit harder? Have you found it harder to manage the cost of the club?
Again, we got very lucky because we managed to secure ourselves a couple of sponsors this year. But everything went up. Training went up. We train at Langley Academy, which is lovely 4G pitch, and you know what, they already costly. So that went up. Our home pitch went up via the council as well, Harvey Park. Not by too much, luckily, but it has gone up. And with it going up, we then have to ask the players to pay more. Luckily for us, like I said, we secured some sponsorship, so we managed to keep our players' costs low. But yeah, you are right though. With everything going up, it is becoming a little bit harder. And our sponsors are a little bit more reluctant because with everything costing so much, they don't have that allocated money to give out, and it's a risk on their marketing strategy as well. It's no guarantee that anything's going to come from it. So that's also not the easiest thing in the world to manage. But we're lucky because we won the President's Cup, because we're a young side in Slough, that we've created a little bit of a buzz. But that buzz can stop. You know, that candle can come off.
Your whole team can end. Your whole team can end before you know it. When we won the President's Cup, we didn't end up. We weren't even in the East Berkshire League the following season. It took us a year to kind of recover from that because we had a different scenario. We're not as at the time we weren't as closely knit as what Baylis were, where you've got a lot more people that know each other.
Yeah.
When I put out my team for the cup final, I think 5 people left the WhatsApp group almost immediately.
Why? Because they never got picked.
Yeah, we had an issue where we had typical cup fever. Players wouldn't be around all season, and then they would be around a month before the final and think that was enough to get into the team. And I picked the squad that was there every round, every tournament. I didn't deviate from the players that committed. A few of the players that were fringe players that were good enough to make the squad didn't, because I gave the guys that we had an issue. Yeah, well, we wanted to play the players that had committed to the Saturday football, basically, because we had a Sunday team as well, and we were finding people trying to migrate over just to be part of the cup team. And we in the first round, the last 16 and the quarter final, we had squads of 11, 11 and 12. So the first 2 rounds we got by on a bare 11.
Wow.
And then the quarter final, when we played Frontline away on a 4G pitch at Burnham Grammar School, they were a very good technical squad.
Exactly.
The game went all the way to extra time. There was 145 minutes of the whole game played.
Wow.
The referee just did not want to win the game and everything. It never ended. It was the longest game of football we've ever played.
Yeah.
Also, because of the FA rules changing, that extra time's done now. It's the only ever time we'll ever play extra time.
Oh, no way, yeah. So you will never ever do that again. Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
So, because obviously now it goes straight to penalties. At the committee meeting we had, they made it very clear that extra time was donezo. It's not a thing anymore. And I was kind of gutted when I heard that. In the committee meeting, if they were filmed, you'd have probably seen me put my head why have they done that?
Yeah.
I love extra. After that one experience, I was like, that was amazing. So
extra time's better than.
We were 2-1 up against. We were 2-1 up against Frontline, and we were largely defending in the second half because 2 of our players had got injuries within the first 5 minutes, so we were limping across the line. And one of their players, I'll put it up whilst we're talking, one of their players picks up the ball from about 40 yards out and scores an absolute screamer. It's honestly arguably the best goal we've ever conceded by quite some distance. And they've celebrated. It's virtually the last kick of the 90th minute. And they've gone away and they're all hyped up because, okay, we're going to extra time. And then within 1 minute of extra time, we scored. and again, it just was a random shot. And then we just defended for 40 minutes, I think, because he added on so much extra time. Because obviously we were game managing to the teeth, and we were just doing everything we can to defend. And we did it with 1 sub and 1 or 2 subs. But one of our players, Leon, our forward, he when we scored our first goal, some guy went over on his ankle really badly, and his ankle was 3 times the size. He missed virtually every game up until the cup final because of that.
Yeah.
And he was our goal scorer and our talisman, and we had to get through the rounds after that without him in the semi-final against Windsor. And so we had 12 men. Leon came back on in extra time to play through the pain because we had to rotate, and there was no other way. And it was just it was the best feeling ever when the final whistle went, because we're all soaked, and it was a 4G pitch, and our feet were killing us. And but we had the squad. I basically told the squad that from that point on in the quarterfinals that was the cup team, because obviously they're the guys that are committed for 3 rounds.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Yeah.
also had to play in a preliminary round as well. Only us
Okay.
and one other team. So we got drawn out to play one team to go into the last 16. So we had a really, really long cup run. And then by the time the final come about, honestly, we had 2 players that just quit the group within a minute of me betting the squad out, and then 3 or 4 more that left within the next few days. And then after the final, we had 2 or 3 players further leave the group because they didn't get what they wanted in the final. We had one player that was injured, and we put him in the team because he was a staple part of the team.
Yeah.
And we gave him some time, but it wasn't good enough. And just life happens.
Wow.
And he had an MCL tear, so he shouldn't have even been.
I shouldn't have been there. Yeah, exactly.
So, but we added him in because we loved him and he was a nice lad. And
just sentimental value, let him lift the trophy kind of thing.
Exactly, but it just didn't pan out how we wanted to, and it just went a bit sour after that. And so it's just managing that kind of and again the points about how fragile football is sometimes. After winning a cup competition, I thought, okay, we're going to kick on now.
Exactly.
And then I found out by September, oh God, we don't even have a squad left. And
wow.
So we were in a position where over the course of the last year, we've just been growing and growing and growing. A lot of it's been off the field, try to improve the processes and everything else to the point where we can get going again.
Exactly.
And, so football's quite fragile. So it's good to have sponsors on board. Were you part of that process of getting in any sponsors? Were you heavily involved, or was that part of your delegation?
That was, I was heavily involved, to be honest with you. Even with the delegation, a lot of the stuff is, so like I said, apart from the money side of things, I'm aware of the situation, but I don't deal with it too much. But even in the terms of the coaching, I have my ideas on sessions, but I let the guys run their own session. But I am involved in every department at the same time. I know everything that's going on with the sponsors. Yeah, because I'm a salesman. They well, you know how to do it. You go and do it. So that was literally what it was, And we've got a couple other people that support in the background, with advising me and stuff like that. So we literally went out to businesses. I was going to takeaways that I was eating in and being like, guys, got 5 minutes for a chat. But finding the owner was difficult. But Big Boys Kitchen, who we're now sponsored by, a lot of our boys go there. If you haven't been there in Slough yet, go check them out. This is not a promotion.
I'll put in some links in the description below. Don't worry. Absolutely.
Some promotion. Get some promotional out there. So. Yeah.
The one thing that I come across a lot, speaking to people, particularly in the Reading area, keeping a football team alive is that funding element. If you were, so I like doing podcasts about helping out secretaries, helping out people in these positions when they need to keep teams alive and kicking. What would your biggest recommendations be to people that are looking for sponsors? I got to the point where I'm not a salesman, and I don't think I've got that salesman nicking me. So I find it a little bit harder to approach people. And so it got to the point where I had enough money to just say, you know what, we're just going to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But if you were in a position where starting up a club again, or somebody said to you, Haseeb, what is the advice I need to get in some money from sponsors? What would you say to people if they were asking you about that journey and, the essential things to do?
To be honest with you, I think approaching businesses it's not easy for everybody, but I think that's the biggest thing, because I like to consider myself a community person. My family's quite well respected in Slough. We know loads of people. So it was always easier for me to kind of go into my community and say to people, this is who I am, this is what I do. We've got a big project here. Would you like to get involved? And that's just literally what we did, to be honest with you. I would say it is your own business almost, Rob, where this is a project that I had big ideas for. So for me, nothing is too much. Nothing is, that's unrealistic. Everything is, if that's going to benefit my club, I'm going to go 2 hands head first to try and get that benefit. When we got the sponsors, we were starting the season with no sponsor. We had a breakdown of how it's going to look financially without the sponsor. So we were set up to have non-sponsor. The club was set up in a way, okay, if it doesn't work out, this is how we're going to go. But my advice would be just go out there, go to your local community, go to the places you guys are regularly at, whether that's for example, the laundrette. We spoke to our laundrette that washes our kit every week. You know, we didn't get over the line with them, but we approached them. We said, "You see us every week. This is who we are." You know, if it's the local takeaway, the local fish and chip shop, the local pub, you know, even other kind of charities, because our first sponsor was a charity who were looking to get out there, who had investment that they were, you know, that would have ticked some boxes for them. So it's always leaning on your own people is always going to benefit you. I try and my best to lean on, you know, people. I'm quite a middleman, being a salesperson. It's generally what you do. I like to, you know, it's also finding the right person for the right role. I've spoken to people, sponsorship or support, and as I said to you, they try to take over. They're like, "This is what you need to do." When now I say to people, "Look, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we need. Can you offer us this?" If they start talking about, "Oh, youth academy," and this, forget all of that. We don't need that. Can you offer investment? Can you offer financial support? Can you offer bringing some equipment to the club? You know, don't tell us what we should be doing. What can you do, and what can you bring to the table? And I think that is the most important thing for clubs now. Where, you know, no disrespect, I mean, I don't know exactly how your clubs run, but doing everything on your own, from my perspective, was very difficult. But again, it depends on what you do outside, and you know what your lifestyle is like. And there's so much powerful people, impressionable people that you've got in your circle. You'd be surprised about what they can bring to the table. And just say to them, "You can bring that. Please bring it to us. You know, don't worry about anything else. Bring what you're good at." And if you bring everybody's powers together, we've got a salesman, we've got an accountant, we've got coaches. It works, you know, rather than me doing everything. Akib, the club sec, the reason why he does that is because his job is planning and developing. So he's good at planning, developing certain things, speaking, sending emails out. He's perfect at that. Naman, the accountant, he loves money. He absolutely loves money. He loves calculations. He deals with all the money and making sure our club is always in the positive. I like speaking to people. I like managing. That's what I do. So it's worked that way. I think delegating is a big thing. Don't take too much on, because it will just drown you.
Mm-hmm. So with so let's stay on the topic of sponsors, and I'll give an example or two that I go through. So I've got somebody in my team that I used to lean on quite heavily, my former captain Vince. He is very, like, I'm very good at, like, you know, I've had like loads of 9-to-5 jobs, but he's got a very, very good profession. He's one of those like highly functioning professionals. Mm-hmm. So every time I need something wordy, or I needed something like understood from his point of view, I'd just go straight to Vince and say, "Yeah, how would I approach this, or how would I do this," or and everything like that. And when it comes to sponsorship, he recommended that I make a sponsorship document, and then said, "Look, we'll start by sending out some emails, and then if we don't get any traction with that, we'll start calling. We'll start going out into face-to-face." The two instances we've had where sponsors have approached us, and it's kind of like a tale of caution for other clubs as well, sometimes about like what sponsorship is and what you need from it. One of them was a company local to us where the only sole thing they wanted us for was for us to basically sign up and do classes at a local gym. And when I said, and the first time I asked them, "Well, what can you do for us?" That was the last time I ever heard from them. Up until that point, he gave me the whole pitch about their like facility, which was fine. It looked great, and what they could offer, which was fine. But all he cared about was his own bottom line, and how much he could ultimately profit from that, without having any of the other give and take. So all he wanted to do was take, and he didn't want to play ball with the other side of it. So in that instance, if is it worth progressing with somebody that says that initially, or do you just move on?
Our first two sponsors did that, by the way, Rob. Our first sponsor, their names are there on the shirt, but I won't say them. They were like, "This is what we're giving you. This is what we want." We explained it's not really realistic. It won't really work. Second sponsor, same thing. They wanted us to run like regular camps on half term, and I was saying, "Look, nobody's earning money from this. You're talking about guys that work and earn. What we can do is put you on our shirt. We can promote you. We can talk about you. We can attend some of your events, but don't rely on us to do that. Our two committed days are training day and a match day at the end of the day, you know." They were adamant that they wanted to work with us, and they did. I would say to clubs, as mad as it sounds, take the sponsor and explain which is what we did. We said, look, we can try and give you what we can. This is what we want in return. We got the financial investment in. It worked out. So our second sponsor cut halfway through. So where we had a 3-year contract, they only gave us the 2 years. But for 2 years, they were massive for us. You know, we might not have ticked their boxes, but they ticked a few of ours in terms of financial support. and we are a grassroots club, so we don't make, as you know, none of us get paid. You know what I mean? We do this all of our own back. We work our socks off. We don't make a penny out of this. And most of the time, we're probably down negative.
Most of the time, all the time.
You know, going in your own pocket. So,
yeah.
I think the thing is, I am a pretty good salesman, Rob. So that definitely helps me when I'm going to do it. So I think you need to find somebody that is similar in that everybody's got one in the club, you know, and lean on your community. That's what I would say. I would say even so much go to say, put it on certain groups of people and say, look, we're doing something here. We're attracting 30 people, you know, that can actually bring something to the table. It's not like we've only got 12 people. You've got 30 people around your club. That's a lot of people that can do something. If those 30 people talk about this local gym, that gym can now have 200 members from you guys. And it's about reiterating that for them. I always go to takeaways and or companies and say to them, you've got potentially 30 people, even if half of them come to you every single week, you've got 15 new customers that are coming to you just from us. Guaranteed almost. We'll have meetings in your takeaway, your laundrette, it's the same thing, so on and so forth. So I always put out what we can bring, how much difference we can make rather, plus the difference they'll make in terms of supporting a group of, for us, young individuals that they can support. So it depends. I think I'm a salesman, Rob, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, no, you know what I mean? I can always convince someone.
It's all really good because there's so many people that run grassroots. There's our Sunday team is only alive this year because a group of players from another club said that they just couldn't bear the financial weight anymore, and that they were looking and trying their best, but they were a little bit younger. They didn't quite know how to get some of these finances over the line. So so some of that expertise from their group was missing. So this will be really advantageous for people that are watching, going, okay, maybe I need to lean on my community, stick local. I'll give you one other example. We had so we found this company online. We reached out to them. I had a phone call with them afterwards. They wanted me to be ultra specific with what I would offer, and then what they would also then offer in return. So before there was any type of negotiating, they wanted me to give them, say, a fixed amount of money that they were going to put into the club, and they kind of wanted an exact breakdown of what it would be used for. Have you ever come across that before, where somebody wants to be very specific with the investments, then they could weigh it up with their however their process works internally?
Yeah, so our first sponsor did the same thing. They cut halfway through as well, because when we were providing them with invoices, they were like, well, we're looking at investment and it doesn't look like we're getting anything in return, which nobody ever guaranteed them anything in return. So, our current sponsor, we're being very transparent. So we always use that word transparency. We'll give you all of the documentation you want. Every time we purchase anything, we'll show you. I think the other thing which I forgot to mention was just on what you said about the young group of players and stuff is the fact that you need to plan. I think knowing the cost of everything, because when in our first season, we didn't plan very well. We jumped in. We didn't know that you had to pay £40 for the Ascot Cup. We didn't know you had to pay a further £20 for the other cup. We didn't know how much the affiliation costs were. It was £75. I think they've gone up. We didn't know you had to pay for the referees every week and how much they were. So those things were like, okay, you need to plan for that. If you could put all that down in a paper, you know what you need. So we have, with Namon now, we know this is how much we're going to need if we don't have a sponsor. This is how much we need to ask the sponsors for. If we don't have a sponsor, this is how much we're going to charge the players. If we do have a sponsor, this is what we can reduce it to. So you need to plan. I think planning and preparing is the main thing. That's one thing that I learned while being at FC Baylis, that it can't be jumped in.
Yes, and my first podcast that I did was actually centered around that exact topic about, if you're a day one manager or somebody looking to start a club, what do you need from A through Z? Because when I started, I had a year of planning. So I contacted the county FA like a year in advance, and they basically told me you need A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yeah.
Be aware for these costs and everything else. So I drew up and planned for so much time. Okay, this is how much money you need. And then it all went out the window when I saw how much a video camera cost. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to... Yeah, and luckily enough for me at the time, I was working for a company that was moving most of its team away to another country. So I kind of had like a surplus of money at the time that I could invest into it. So I was like, thank God. So then I just basically said, you know what, for the first year, cost is irrelevant. I'm just going to put everything I can into it. And then all of a sudden it's okay. We don't need that avenue of support. But yeah, it's always good. Like I always recommend to players to plan. Number one, plan, be as efficient as you can. Sometimes people, from my experience, get tired of it, or they don't want to maintain doing it after a year of doing it.
Yep.
It takes a special person to be a football administrator for years after years after years. A couple of years, sometimes when they start to have the financial implications fall on them, especially when they're younger, they go, oh God, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And they're kind of expecting other people to take that burden on or levy that. So that's kind of how teams like myself find players nowadays. So yeah.
But I think that comes to the planning as well, because because they haven't planned, they were so shocked about how much it took that year took out of them. Because my first year took a lot out of me, emotionally, physically, mentally, financially. Exactly. So I think because I had an idea, although I didn't plan as well as I should have, I had an idea. It was easier then going forward, because then the plan was easier to kind of prepare. If you don't have a plan, it is very, very difficult.
It is. So money aside, let's just talk about a few other things. So with Baylis, obviously we're now talking about having a plan and a 5-year plan. At the end of the 7-year plan, 5-year plan, where do you guys see yourself being?
Hopefully a established Premier Division club. That is where we want to be.
This summer, at the AGM, for people that don't know, the way that a football league works is that you have an AGM every year where you basically have the league's committee basically say, here's the teams in the Prem, here's the teams in Div 1, here's kind of our reasoning. You can scrutinise it between the clubs. Yeah. So you guys were initially put in the Division 1, and there's nothing... the Premier Division. So you guys were moved up because I'm assuming of your President's Cup success, and you were put into that elite bracket of 14 teams to start. So did you have to tell the league, look, because of our development plan, we're not quite there yet to be in that cycle? Because and this is a very good comparison for us, because we were in exactly the same boat when we won the President's Cup. If you take away our league, if you take away the fact that we'd won the cup, we finished third from bottom in our league, and we were convincingly we were not as good in the league. We had some very harsh days at the office, and we were in the Prem as well. So arguably we were in a position to be relegated based on our form alone. And then because we won the cup, they said, no, you're going to stay in the Premier Division next year. You proved yourselves. And then we folded for the year because of all of the turnover that I mentioned that we had. And then when we returned this year, completely new squad, they said to us still, no, we're going to put you in the Premier Division. And I was at an interest meeting with all of these new clubs, and they said, where do you ideally want to be, Rob? And I said, well, in an ideal world, who doesn't want to be in a Premier Division? Because it means that you've developed, you've got time, you've had years and time to really grow your club. And they took that as, well, he wants to play in the Prem.
He wants to play in the Prem, yeah.
So that's it, done. We're sticking him in the Prem. But that was me speaking idealistically, not realistically based on what I've got. So for months, I was I was on one with the league. I was so upset. I couldn't even hide my frustrations. They were sending in Rob, we want your report. We want a preview for the showcase game. And I was being so salty with them. It's unreal. And I'll be honest, because it's part of the process. I get, as an organizer, you can be frustrated sometimes. And I hit my limit. And then when I was seeing the committee members at the thing, my head was mad and I was upset and I couldn't even look at anybody in the eye. And I thought they'd really screwed the pooch of me. And I was so upset. So for you guys, they ultimately put you in Division 1. So what was that process? What did you guys have to say to the league? Because we were in that position and said no, like you're staying where you're staying, but you guys were given that opportunity to continue that 5-year, 7-year development plan. So kind of like, how did that come about? And
Well, I'll thank you for returning, because it seems like because you lot came back, we went down. And you lot went down. Now, you know what? To be honest with you, I think we got lucky that there were so many new teams that ended up coming. Because when they extended the Premier Division to I think it was 14 teams, they had Virginia Water reserves, and I can't remember the other teams. Was it Finch Hampstead that eventually have dropped out now, haven't they?
Yes, they dropped out, yeah. They were in Div 1 as well, I think.
Oh, were they in Div 1? Okay. So
I can't remember.
So there was a couple of teams that came in, and when they then asked us again, because I was pleading with them, I was saying, please, look, we ended 6th. We didn't really put much up of a fight. The problem we have is that we turn up in big games. If we play a team in the Premier Division or a team that's flying Britwell, Old Windsor and all these teams, we always end up having a good game against them. So the league thought, well, you guys are competitive enough. But it was a bit of a saving grace that they kept us in Division 1, because we had a plan for this year to go and really attack Div 1 and really go and make a statement and try to dominate and win the league. That's what we set out. And then when we saw the original group and we were in the Prem, we straight away kicked off. We sent the emails, we sent the voice messages, begging. We can't be there. We shouldn't be there. We got no right to be there. In all honesty, we've got no right to be there. And then we ended up getting lucky because of the new format and the new teams that ended up turning up. So we were actually looking at being a Premier Division team all the way up until the AGM.
Yeah, so so because obviously you didn't know how many new clubs had come in. So for people that don't know, the EBFL has gone on a big recruitment drive over the summer. They actually got in a load of new teams, ourselves included, returning. So they've kind of went from a division of 8 last year in the Prem to a division of 13, 14 now, and a Division 1 of 15. Is it 15 teams?
14 now, because I think Frontline Reserves ended up not being around.
So you've now got 2 healthier sized divisions. So now the league had to basically, with half the league were like new teams. So the league had this unenviable position to like place everybody in almost at random based on the word of clubs alone.
Exactly.
So as a result, you're always going to get a few lopsided results and a few teams sometimes that aren't being like privy with their squads and everything. Like we played South Reading in pre-season, and we'll talk about your game with them in a second. We played them in pre-season and got beat 7-0. And after that, I went back to the league and was like, please, you guys have made such a mistake.
Yeah.
We got rallied off the pitch that day. It wasn't our best day, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
And afterwards, the league were like, we're so sorry, it's too late. And I fully expect South Reading, they've got a great setup there. A couple of our players that used to play for our Sunday and Saturday team, one of them that won the cup, Shane Cooper Clark, he plays for South Reading. So I've got nothing but nice things to say for people that helped me win cup competitions. At the time, I was apoplectic with the league. I was so furious.
I can imagine.
But it's difficult for them to, get all the square pegs and the square holes and the round pegs and the round holes. So with that in mind, you guys got put into that division, and you did play South Reading at the weekend. First of all, talk about your experience with the South Reading game, because it was a bit of a cracker, and then more about that because of the game itself. Where do you guys then envision yourselves to finish this season, or kind of what are your aims heading into that development cycle?
So, I mean, it was good because we heard good things about them as well. Akib and Naman were telling us that, they were at the AGM. They were saying these lot are being pipped to win Division 1. I felt like we feel like it was a bit of a loss. We were 3-1 and 5-3 up. Didn't see the game out. So we felt like it felt like a bit of a loss. They are an experienced side. They are a very, very good side. They're very physical. They play their style of football very well. And we kind of struggle against organised sides. If you're organised and you know what you're doing, we will have some issues because we just kind of force things and rush everything. But they were a good side. And to be honest with you, again, we're looking at it. We like to think we can compete with the likes of Singh Saba, the likes of Britwell, the likes of Old Windsor, and if South Reading are up there with them, I think based on this Saturday gone, even though I know they said they had a couple of players out, we did as well. We had a few players out, and some of our players were playing their first game of the season. But I think we are still, our development plan is still there. We're still quite, on track of where we want to be. If we won, I think drawing gave us a bit of a wake-up call and kind of made us think it is competitive. It's not going to be easy, bear in mind everybody else is here competitive as well. But I feel like we kind of know where we are. It was a good result. We take the point. You know what I mean? We didn't lose, and they are a good side. So, it made me see more positive than anything else. I see where we're gonna go. I see how we are developing, and if we bring some of those boys back that we were waiting on, I think we should still. We've got the same targets. We should be trying to challenge for this division.
Who else do you think is going to be up there then? What about KS Griff as well? Do you think they're going to be up there? Because they've got a lot of turnover, new manager as well.
Yeah, I've been told they've got a new manager. They got a couple of new people on board as well. They've always been a good side. We played them a couple of years ago and they absolutely spanked us. I think it was 8-0 or something ridiculous like that. We did have a couple of players missing, but they gave us a real big humbling a few years ago. I think this is 2 seasons ago now, maybe. And we know they're going to be in and around there. I'm hoping it's a bit too soon for them. I'm hoping that this is their first year and they need another season. But the results seem to be going in their favour at the moment. I think they won like 14-0 or something the other day. 17-0.
Yeah.
So
that's Riverside. I was at a game. I actually filmed one of Riverside's games against Reading Tigers.
Yeah.
Down at the Burfield CSA, and it was their first game, and they were still turning up at like 1 minute to 2. And it was a bit of a hard wash after 20 minutes. They were 8-0 down. And I like Yemi at the club for getting that team organised. And I hope to God they see out the season.
So
because a team like that needs a lot of time to gel and bed in a load of new players. And, having a 12-0 loss and a 17-0 loss, though, it can be hard. I've never been in a position where I've played for a team that have had drubbings like that. But
yeah.
And, where do the players go? Because, they played South Reading last week as well. So this Riverside team have already played arguably 2 of the favourites for the league. And they've lost like 12 and 15, 16, 17-0 and everything. And, I'd love to speak to a manager about how they speak to players after those type of games. Because what do you say? That's a very different conversation that you have.
I mean, we've got them in 2 weeks, so don't give him too much advice now.
No. Well, there's a big difference between giving some advice and trying not to concede 10 in a game. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, it's a big shock. I think Rio Saracens, who are brand new as well, that's a big game for us because the guy that we started the club with left us to go to them.
I see. Yeah.
They got a bit of a drubbing as well the other day. But I think it's a big reality check. It sounds all good to join a Saturday League team, but the Saturday League is very competitive. There's teams out there that want to win games, and if you have to know that there's a good standard.
It is, and especially in the Premier Division, I've got largely a new bunch of players that don't know what these teams are like, and
Exactly.
I've got a laser focus on Britwell will play like this. Old Windsor will play like this. Frontline will play like this. And there's a lot of different play styles.
When you've got Singh Saba back now as well.
Yeah, Singh Saba. I'll just go through some of them. Singh Saba are very technically gifted. They're very good at moving the ball. They switch the play excellently. They're patient. They break you down mentally. They do. They give you a game mentally and physically. Old Windsor are big, strong, physical, athletic. They get about easily. They know how to move the ball. We even played Sandhurst in pre-season, who finished second, and they have a lot of winning runners. They are very good off the ball. They're energetic. They're lively. They're going to cause some teams issues when they finally figure it out this season. Yeah, they're very, very good. Then you've got teams like Britwell, who are they live and die by the name of their club. They're very, very, very strong physically. They get in your heads. They're charlatans, but they know what they're doing. But it's all for their benefit, 100%.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to recruit players in to play at that level and they don't know any of this, learning on the job week to week is going to be my game this season.
Yeah.
We did it against old Windsor, and now we've got Virginia Water coming up.
Good side, Virginia Water.
And by the time we play them, it will be about 2 months down the line, and I might be crying after a 7-0 loss, or we could win again. But that's like kind of like the difference when you're recruiting in players that don't know and they're still betting in. You can have these freak results where you can win a game where you're completely at it, or as we faced when we play South Reading, if the chemistry's not there, you can lose 7-0 quite easily. So that's the difference is so razor thin. We lost our first game of the season 7-2 to Southcote, and arguably we had a very strong team up for the game. But it just 30 minutes in, we had conceded a couple of penalties and our heads were gone. And then we lost 7-2, and it was a nightmare. And but they were very good and strong, and they were well-rounded the whole pitch. The whole pitch, they were so well-rounded, and we just could not get to grips with the first game. And then when we went to the stadium against Presswood in a showcase game, we knew that they were going to be playing a 3-5-2 and passing the ball about. And we didn't see a lot of the ball, but we beat them 4-1, I believe. And but so it's just managers and players that are in these leagues and they don't know what these players are about. I'm having to basically plead with them. This is what they're like. Get to grips, minute one. Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, if they're not on it from the first whistle, they're just sometimes you can get eaten up so easily as well. So, it's no joke. Saturday football is no joke when you play organised teams.
Absolutely,
It can make or break your weekends. And
very much so, yeah.
Yeah, and so I did want to talk about one last thing today, because it's something that I don't really have to go through. So we've got a couple of elder statesmen in our team who go through Ramadan every year, and, they have periods where they're fasting, and we have to manage them through games and training sessions. And because you guys have a lot more of a Muslim influence in your team, I thought I would lean on your expertise. So if if a team is either starting up that has a lot of players that go through the Ramadan cycle, or want to start a club and they kind of want to know the process of that, can you speak to that process of Ramadan and what players and clubs go through during that process? Because I'm interested by it as an organizer, how it would affect a big team. I'll give one example before you speak. Last year in Sundays, we had a team in our division called Brothers United, and they played at a really nice pitch in Reading called Soldier Park. But they largely had every single home game cancelled because their pitch, after 5 minutes of rain, would call up and say, nope, the game's off. So by the time it got to Ramadan in spring, they had to play a schedule of a game on Sunday, a game on Tuesday, and a game on Thursday. And during the whole month of Ramadan, they had to play every single 3 days. And they were the odds-on favourite to win our division. And I believe until that point. And they got a couple of draws against the bottom place teams in the league where it had caught up to them, because they were going through the cycle of fasting, and they had a couple of games where they had bare 11s, and it cost them the division in my eyes.
Seems like it.
So because you guys go through that a lot more, I just thought I'd lean on your expertise about how you as an organizer go through that with your players and administrate a club in a period that can be a lot more strained than what it usually would be.
So obviously Ramadan is one of the most important parts of our religion, where we observe fasting for 30 days. We always prepare for it, so we don't know exactly when it starts out. You're probably going to know the whole drama about the start date of Ramadan, and different groups do it at different times and stuff, but we kind of have a rough idea of when it will start. It will always start, so where it started in the end of March last year, it will always be 10 days. It will move 10 days forward in the next following year. So we always have a rough idea when it will be. And what we do is we request some time off with the league straight away. So we'll say to the league, within this period, we're going to need 2 weeks, because they can only give you 2 weeks. We need 2 weeks off. And it's easier that way to get the boys up for those only 2 games in the month. And what we like to do is we like to start the month with those 2 games. And then towards the end of the month, don't play, because it gets harder. The more you fast, the more weight you lose, the more tired you are, the less water you've taken. So we try to get it done straight away. We've been lucky that the last few seasons, when in our first season, we played on a Wednesday. So our last 2 games of the season were on a Wednesday. So we were playing and then opening our fast at half time. So it kind of worked. The boys know I give absolutely everything in this 45 minutes. I can go and have a sip of water and have a little date, have a little bit of orange and get back to it, and I can eat. The Saturday is a little bit more difficult where you're playing at 2:00.
2:00.
And then
in the middle of it, right in the middle of...
Literally. Mm-hmm. So those are a little bit difficult. And we always meet. So we meet at 12:00 and we start our warm-up and our preparation quite early. So that can be difficult. But as I said, where they know it's only 2 games in this month, the boys kind of are happy to give absolutely everything because it's only... We'll get through this 90 minutes. We'll talk about the next one in the week. And then what we do is we train, we carry on training and we open our fast together. So in the Ramadan period, we pray together and we open our fast together. And that brings a lot of, unity as well. And it's a nice little bond. One of the players will lead the prayer and everyone will be behind him praying, and then we'll all open our fast together. So it's all about, I think, the way you create the culture of your club. Because that's an important thing for us. What we said is we're not going to make it a negative, because we're fasting, we can't do this. We'll spin it and put it into a positive. And this was the best way we could manage that, where we stay competitive. We don't run risk of being in a position like the club that you mentioned, Brothers United, are in. The difficult thing we had last year was a lot of our games got cancelled as well. And we said to the league, you can't put them in the month of Ramadan. You cannot do that. So what they did is they said, cool, you'll have to play Wednesday games during April. And we said, fine, it's not Ramadan, then we'll play Wednesday games. We don't mind that. Not during April, sorry, during June or May, sorry. So we did that. We played our last 3 or 4 games where we were playing Saturday, Wednesday. That made sense for us. So requesting with the league is a big thing. And I think I have to say there's a lot of people within the league, maybe not last year and the year before, but now that are very actively saying we need to be a little bit more open to other cultures and whatnot. And Darren from Stoke Poges was big on that this year. He said to me, the fact that you lot played last year was massive, and I want to support you guys. And it shouldn't be a case of us putting your, the fact that you lot are Muslim, put that aside and get on with football. It should be able to balance both sides. And I thought that was really big of him, and it was massive. And we've now, hopefully that is going to happen where they support us a little bit more in Ramadan and clubs. Because we're not the only club, by the way. Like you said, you've got a couple of players, frontliner.
Slough clubs, for people that don't know the geography of the area. Slough has a lot of Muslim-based teams. And
exactly.
There seems to be a lot more than what there are in neighbouring towns, such as
absolutely
Reading or Bracknell or Wokingham. It seems to be a hotspot for teams in the area. So it's prevalent across that time that senior teams in the EBFL largely in the past have been Muslim. So yeah, it's affecting teams across the league as well.
I think Slough a little bit more progressive, where we know we've got a Muslim community, but we want to get involved in this aspect of things as well. I don't know. I can't speak for any of the community, but it seems like that, where Slough are like, look, we are Muslim, but we also want to get involved. Do you know what I mean? So we're going to integrate. We're going to be able to manage this somehow. It seems like the other areas, maybe the active Muslim communities are a bit like, oh, we can't fit in, so we're not going to get involved. I'm not sure. I might be wrong in that, but it just seems, and I hope that changes in time, because it works for us. We manage it, and there is a way you can manage it. Play the first games at the first few weeks of Ramadan, and then enjoy the rest of your month.
Have you ever experienced or spoken to clubs that have struggled during this period? And have you kind of said or kind of offered some advice? So what are those struggles that these clubs go through? Is it that sense of organisation, or is it more that, I don't know, because I don't know, because with Christmas, I'm not a religious person myself, but with Christmas, it seems to be nothing happens on that day, or it seems to be certain religious holidays, nothing else takes precedent at all. But because Ramadan is a fluid time of the year, it changes and everything. And last year just happened to fall at the time where the football season was ending, so clubs were fitting in all of these midweek fixtures in the middle of fasting, and everything. So what are the things that clubs from your experience struggle through that period?
It's obviously the main thing is the players fasting, so the players availability obviously drops. Everyone's looking at it, because we've been told, the thing is with us is that we don't let our religion should not stop us, and it's something that is big within when you're fasting. You carry on your day-to-day activities. I know some people take time off work because we're not particularly religious. I wish I was a lot more religious than what I am, and this is a month where a lot of Muslims like myself say we're dedicating, because we're not exactly practicing throughout the year. I'm going to do what I can in this month. And hopefully that's my ticket. Hopefully the big man looks at it and says, yeah, but, so a lot of people are a lot more active within this month. So people want to pray, people want to read the Quran, people want to fast and really observe it to the best that they can. That is a big struggle, because then you've got loads of people, like I said, that are then unavailable. And the last 10 days of Ramadan as well, some people go to the mosque and literally lock themselves away in the mosque, put their phones away and whatnot. And it's called itikaf, where they spend a lot of the time just reciting the Quran, praying and switching off from the world. We had some players that observed that last year as well. It's all about just managing it. It's about having a clear idea. Again, planning is important because we know it, we plan for that. So we say, for example, this year, let's try and play as many games as we can up until the start of Ramadan. We play the first 2 games of the month, and then we rest for the last 2 weeks. We will still train, because our training, then we reduce the intensity, and it's just about keeping the boys together more than anything else. But obviously the struggles are the availability, people wanting to observe and really practice. So, you lose a lot of players, and the intensity drops. You've got boys that have an 8, and then you're asking them to give you 110%. I think being backed up as well, because one of our biggest problems in our first season was that, as I said to you, even last season, we picked a squad, 16 of them were Muslim, all of them were fasting on game day. Be an open club. The problem we have is that because I'm Pakistani and I'm South Asian, it seems like that's all I want to attract. But we're open to everybody. We've got Hindu players, we've got Christian players, we've got atheists. It doesn't bother us at all. We don't convert anybody.
No, of course. Yeah.
It
don't happens in football. Yeah.
But it just is. It is the way it is. So we're hoping that will change slowly, and that's what we're trying to do. And then we can hopefully then rely on everybody, and we're a diverse club. It won't matter because we can rest X amount of players and so on and so forth. But right now, we're managing it.
I don't know if this is a dumb question or not, but have the league ever said to Muslim team, well, not Muslim teams, but teams that have predominantly Muslim players, do you guys want to play each other in Ramadan to take out that competitive, like to be on an equal footing? So, for example, like a team like mine from Reading that may have one Muslim player in, instead of playing us in Ramadan, play a team that's also fasting, so that both teams are an even keel for games. Has that ever been like recommended to these teams or not?
I think we were supposed to play frontline last year. It was during Ramadan. I don't know if that was coincidence or if that was kind of thought of. Probably coincidence.
It will be a coincidence. These fixtures, man, like you never know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. To be honest with you, what I would prefer is, again, this is just preference, is maybe that looking at the predominantly Muslim teams and trying to cram their fixtures in before that period. That's what we ask for the league. Obviously, I know games can get cancelled because of weather, and with the country we live in, we don't know what weather we're going to get. That obviously is a problem. But I think generally, if the league if we get a game called off on a Saturday, I think the league should push for us to play that Wednesday fixture whenever possible, and try and stop it where it's in Ramadan. I totally understand they can't give us a whole month off. That would ruin the fixtures. But try to reduce the fixtures. Only give 2 over the 4 weeks. Only give 1 over the 4 weeks, or so on. That's what I would prefer if the league would try and cater in that kind of way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, to be honest. So then you just are mitigating that time in Ramadan so that you're still inclusive in the community and people are still going about their normal life. I like the sound of that. Aside from that, though, we will wrap things up there, and I'll just basically let you have an outro where, you basically round out where you want Baylis to be in a few years, because obviously we've been talking a lot about development and cycles and plans. Give us a bit of an insight about where you want Baylis to be. And apart from that, I just want to say thank you for taking up way more than 2 hours of time today with take 1 and take 2. It's been a long evening. Just want to say thank you. Speak to where you want Baylis to be in the next few years.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and it's been quite an interesting conversation. To be honest, like I said, we want to be an established Premier Division club. we do have slightly bigger ambitions than that, but not within this small kind of planned time. Within the next 5 to 7 years, we want to be established in Premier Division, but looking at competing at the top two. I'm hoping by the end of the 7-year plan, we're looking and thinking about winning the Premier Division. So if we can get promoted this year, go into our 5th year and stay in the league, our 6th year, look at the top 4, and our 7th year, if it's not top 2, it's hopefully putting our hands on the trophy.
Of course, and it's definitely achievable for all the Div 1 teams that are in this same predicament where they're at the stage where they're looking to make the jump up. Having done it now 2 years on the spin, being in the Premier Division and having this constant angst over your head, the gap isn't as big as what you think. And all it takes is for you guys to get one result and you'll just be at home. And as you said, you've beaten Britwell before in a thriller in a cup game, and you've beaten other big teams. So as soon as you get acclimatized, it's not as daunting as everybody makes out. When we got our fixture list at the start of the year, we were told we were playing Southcote, Old Windsor, Virginia Water, and Britwell in our first 4 out of 5 games. And before the season started, I thought we're not even going to have a team after 5 games. And ultimately now we're looking at it going, we've got 2 wins on the board against 2 heavily established clubs. And all of a sudden, everybody is so up for these games and everybody then falls in love with it. So it's not as big of a jump as what everybody makes out. And hopefully with the league progressing in the next few years, there's going to be a lot more teams like yourselves and hopefully KS Griff and South Reading and others that we don't even know about yet that are going to come in and just make everything harder to win. That's what this league needs in particular.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And, you know, the committee are doing a great job to make it happen. They've added a lot this year, and next year I'm going to help them out and make sure that they bring in even more because they deserve it because they're doing a lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
Behind the scenes. But apart from that, again, I just want to say thank you for your time. Hope everybody's enjoyed the podcast at home, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, Rob. You take care.
Rounding out today's podcast, I would lastly, again, one final time, like to thank Haseeb for all of his time and efforts this afternoon. It was a long recording session on what is today, the 4th of September 2023. Ourselves and Baylis have just come off of playing a couple of games at the weekend where it's been really good and hot weather in the UK. As you can see from my pasty white complexion here, I look like a drumstick on my neck and my arms. That's the part and parcel of being English, unfortunately. It was great to speak to somebody like Haseeb, who's been through the ringers, winning the cup competitions and developing a club around the same time as myself as well. He's got a lot of good insight as well to do with sponsorship and a good overview of what players go through when they go through the Ramadan period as well. So I hope that if you're a new viewer or a returning, that you liked our footage today and that you've learned something from either myself or Haseeb along the way. Aside from that, I'd encourage you to give this video a like, share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on the path to 1,000 followers, and I'm really appreciative of all the feedback that I've got on the podcast as well. Aside from that, we've got a lot more coming your way to close the year and into 2024 as well. And aside from that, until next time, believe the hype.